Armored Core 6 will be a Souls-like? Who wrote this? No. Let me fix it for you. Here you go. And I'm going to show you why. For those of you that somehow managed to miss it, it was announced during the Game Awards that From Software has been hard at work on a brand new Armored Core game. It is titled Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. However, for a lot of us that had been paying attention to the rumors around From Software, it didn't really come as a surprise because it has been rumored for a while throughout multiple websites across the internet that the next game that From Software was going to be working on after Elden Ring was going to be a new Armored Core title. There's even a bunch of leaks out there from people who claim to have played like a beta or alpha version of the game and where they've given their own impressions on what they've experienced of the title. Now, however, we have a lot of people asking, what is Armored Core all about? And let's begin by me showing you guys the trailer in case you happen to have missed it, because the trailer is also pretty awesome and will kind of just like set the tone for the rest of this video. Enjoy. That trailer's pretty friggin' sweet, isn't it? Anyway, at this point, what From Software is mostly known for is naturally their Soulsborne franchises, Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, as well as naturally Elden Ring, and this is what their audience has come to expect from them. Armored Core, however, is an incredibly different title. However, it seems that now a lot of people are projecting onto Armored Core what they expect it to be, which is why we've been getting a lot of discussion around forums and even in videos of people saying stuff like, oh, the next Armored Core is going to be a Souls-like, which has been interesting. Like, we have a video from Vati Vidya where he said that, like, oh, it wouldn't surprise me if they were to include some Souls-like stuff. We have a video from Fighting Cowboy saying exactly the opposite, which is like, it's not going to be like Souls at all, which I'm more inclined to agree with as someone who has played Armored Core 5 previously. I just don't think that the type of game that Armored Core is really lends itself all that that well to the Souls-like type of stuff, which is something that we're going to be getting into. But it's just been interesting to see everybody like coming out and saying, oh, it's going to have a lot more influence from Souls-like, and basically, no, it's not. And we're going to be taking a look at an IGN interview here, a lot of portions of that interview that I kind of like took out to talk about in this video, and in there they confirmed that it is not going to be like Souls at all, and like I said, it just wouldn't make a lot of sense for the type of game that Armored Core is. However, the interesting thing is that this allowed me to make that meme that I did at the start of the video, which is, it's not like Souls, it's actually more like Monster Hunter, and I'm going to tell you guys why. Because fundamentally, the way that the structure has been in Armored Core 5 at least, it's basically you have like a lobby, which you can do in co-op or you can do in single player. They don't give too many details on the multiplayer here, which is something that I'm a little bit concerned about, but not too much because I expect there to be co-op as well. But basically, you go into this lobby, and in there you basically get to customize your mech to the nth degree. So if you look at the customization of your mech, kind of like you putting together a set of armor, you'll notice that this is actually a lot more like Monster Hunter than necessarily Dark Souls, which is very interesting. It's in a way, I personally feel that this is almost going to be like From Software dipping their toes into the Monster Hunter pool, specifically because of some of the things that they say in this interview. So let's just dive right into this, because there's a lot to talk about. This video is probably going to be extremely long, but do know that I didn't just make that as a meme. I genuinely believe that this is going to relate closer to Monster Hunter than necessarily to something like Dark Souls, and it has to do with the mission structure and all of that stuff. So one of the first things to point out is that Miyazaki himself has actually been the director on Armored Core 4, as well as another Armored Core called For Answer, which I'm not familiar. Like I said, the Armored Core that I played was Armored Core 5, and I believe that there was another one that came after that, which was Verdict Day. And I didn't really play Verdict Day, I just played 5, and I believe I actually played all the way through 5 because I really enjoyed the customization aspect of the mechs. But Miyazaki himself is not going to be the person directing. He's been involved with the project. He's going to remain involved with the project, but the director is going to be Masaru Yamamura. Now, Masaru Yamamura has worked on Sekiro as lead game designer. He's worked on Bloodborne as game designer. These credits, I'm not exactly sure what these positions entail. I think that like his biggest role is naturally Sekiro because it says lead game designer, but you know, and Bloodborne just says game designer, Dark Souls says as a planner, and level designer in Dark Souls 3 as a gameplay designer. Interesting enough, there were no credits for Dark Souls 2, so he appears to have worked on all of the games except Dark Souls 2. And also, he hasn't worked on Elden Ring, apparently. Not 100% sure. I didn't super check that. I just wanted to get like an idea, but basically his biggest claim to fame appears to be Sekiro. Now, Masaru Yamamura brings up the general game cycle in a portion of the interview that I kind of just like extrapolated to get us started, and he said, the general game cycle is to clear missions and you earn money and you use that money to buy more expensive weapons and parts for your mech. And also within that, you are tuning these parts, and you're tuning the weapons and tuning your mech to suit your playstyle, changing parameters, changing the performance of various parts to suit the way that you want to approach each mission in battle. I think you could call this the equivalent in Armored Core 6. So, if you actually pay attention to that particular sentence, if you just think of this as like a more complex building of a mixed set in Monster Hunter, which is essentially what you're doing. You're deciding like, what type of legs do I want for my mech? And these type of legs are going to decide how tanky your mech is going to be, while at the same time, how fast is it going to be? Is it going to be faster in, in flight mode? Is it going to be faster at dodging? Is it going to have a certain amount of armor that you'll be able to take more shots in the legs? Stuff like that. And there were even, if I remember correctly, you could even have like treads on certain Armored Core builds that you would make, because again, it's been a long time since I've played this. So yeah, think about that, and then you'll have like different types of arms, and you'll also have like the weapons that you come equipped with, and then you also have an additional set of weapons that you can like swap into during mission. And if I remember correctly, those weapons can be damaged separately depending on where you hit. So if you hit in the back, it can actually damage the stuff that you have in the back. I'm not 100% sure, because again, it's been a long time since I've played an Armored Core game, and it's been a long time since a new Armored Core game came out, but I am excited about it. So, IGN then asks, is it fair to say that Armored Core 6 will be closer to the Soulsborne games than this series has been in the past? See, this is the question on a lot of people's minds. And Hidetaka Miyazaki instantly says, no. Just like literally the first thing Men says, no. We've been making a conscious effort to try and direct it toward, we have not been making a conscious effort to try and direct it more towards more Soulsborne type gameplay. First of all, let me make that clear. The essential direction of Armored Core 6 was to go back and take a look at the core concept of Armored Core and what made this series special. So we wanted to take the assembly aspect. This is you basically building your mech, which you can swap parts out and all of this stuff in between missions. As a matter of fact, that's one of the really cool aspects, is that depending on the mission that you are doing, you can be like, oh, for this mission, I want to have this type of mech. I want to have a slower mech, a tankier mech, or for this mission, I want to go more like a glass cannon. And you could also like pair up with, again, this is in previous games because we don't know how co-op is going to work on 6, but like I remember also talking to my friend and being like, okay, so you're going to be a little bit more tanky, then I'm going to be a little bit more glass cannon. You'll lead and I will just like, you know, snipe from behind or the other way around, something like that. And that is kind of like how we would do our different loadouts for different, more challenging missions and stuff like that. I want to take the assembly aspect, assembling and customizing your own mech, your AC, and then being able to exact a high level of control over the assembled mech. So we wanted to take those two core concepts and re-examine those in our modern environment. And of course, what that means is taking our know-how and experiences from game development in recent years and applying that knowledge to the development of Armored Core 6 and re-examining it together with the core concepts of Armored Core. So the real impetus for this project, I think at least one of the real appeals for me, comes from that aspect of assembly. So they're doubling down on this, like, listen, the really big thing about Armored Core is this customization of your mech, choosing the arm pieces that you want, choosing the armored core that you want, choosing the weapons that you're going to be bringing into the mission. That is going to be the important thing. And being able to really freely assemble and customize the mech, I think, is where we really want high focus on Armored Core, and having mechs or mecha as a theme is really about that high level of freedom that adjusting each individual part gives and how that affects the gameplay and the properties of your mech actually in combat. We think it's a little bit more liberating than, say, just swapping out armor or equipment. There's actually a much higher degree of freedom here. And it's not just freedom, they also need to say a higher degree of freedom and complexity. You're going to be looking at stats on top of stats on top of stats if it's anything like Armored Core 5. Being able to see these effects both in game as a part of the world building and as a part of player choices, we feel this is a very big part of what makes Armored Core special. And in my opinion, that is 1,000,000% correct, which again comes back to my core thesis of basically like, bro, it's kind of like Monster Hunter. You see, what monster am I going to be fighting? Which set am I going to be taking? Okay, for this monster, this set is going to be more efficient. Let's take that. Let's go. Like in my case, for instance, hey, I'm fighting like Rajang. Maybe I should take wide shelling as opposed to long shelling because wide shelling is going to allow me to be more offensive. That type of thing. Yamimura-san, this is another IGN question. Yamimura-san, you were the lead designer on Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Can you talk a little bit about the lessons you learned from that project and how you're applying them to Armored Core? There are no elements directly referring to Sekiro, but I feel both titles share the same essence of battle, such as aggressive speed change and action-oriented fighting. For this title, by continuing to attack even the strongest enemy, the force of impact can break the enemy's posture and inflict a large amount of damage, a critical hit. This is the starting point for the slow and fast speed change of battle. And when combined with long-range firefighting and close-range melee combat, the enemy and his machine engage each other violently, creating a more aggressive and dynamic battle that only mechas can engage in. So he's talking specifically about posture breaking. So they're going to be rewarding you for being aggressive, which is something that From Software has kind of like been building towards to, if you actually pay attention to some of their titles. So like, for instance, right, in Dark Souls, in the original Dark Souls, you could be extremely defensive. You could, you know, pull up your shield and just like block most things and be like a super defensive tank. You move over to Bloodborne. What do you got? No shields. As a matter of fact, they even say shields engender passivity. That was like that one busted shield that you could pick up, which was just like a meme and a reference to you having shields in the previous games. But Bloodborne forced you to be more aggressive. Sekiro forced you to be more aggressive. And even Elden Ring, if you pay attention to some of the patch notes and what they have done, they've nerfed the fingerprint shield because, you know, it allowed you to basically be a walking tank with a beefy shield. It just shows you that it's like, no, we want players to be offensive. offensive, more offensive, more offensive. And that is going to be something they're going to be building onto in Armored Core. Now, during one of the questions, it got specifically in conversation about melee, which, you know, for those of you that might be wondering, because naturally this is a mech game, so there's going to be guns, all types of shots. And let me tell you, I don't think... Could be wrong. I don't think you're going to be making like a build that's mostly just melee. I think you're always going to need some type of firepower for ranged attacks. This is my opinion. Again, I could be wrong, but like from what I've played in Armored Core 5, I'd be like, bro, I ain't going full melee. Screw that. I want to have a couple of guns. Like this is mechs. I want to have a couple of guns so that I can engage from range. But anyway, specifically on top of melee, because they were talking about the whole thing about ranged versus melee. Masaru Yamimura says, yes, you're correct in saying that Armored Core is generally about the guns and ordnance and missiles, and we want to cater to this aspect this time as well. Of course, we have various weapons for various ranges and various encounters, both in the two hands and on the back as well for missiles and cannons and things like that. But we wanted to put an emphasis on melee as well. So if players are this way inclined, we do have some nice melee options if they want to dive in there and get into close quarters combat as well. But like I said, I think that this is going to be something where this is mostly going to be after you get into close quarters, because until you get into close quarters, you're gonna want to have guns. This is my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't know what they're doing for Armored Core 6 naturally, but this is what I would say. IGN, how much can you tell me about Armored Core 6's multiplayer? Yes, we do plan to have, this was Yamamura answering, we do plan to have a versus mode similar to previous Armored Core titles where you'll be able to customize your mech and take that fully customized mech into battle with others. But we will reveal more details about this at a later date. The main focus in Armored Core 6, on the story mode at least, is having that story develop and play out. We've concentrated on single player for the story mode. Please stay tuned for more multiplayer details at a later date. So if I remember correctly, in Armored Core 5, pretty much I mean, I think you had a couple of missions at the start that were mostly single player, but you definitely had a bunch of co-op stuff that you could do later. And I even think that, was it Verdict Day that introduced like this really multiplayer component where there were even like factions and stuff that you joined, and things got really wild with taking over a map or something like that. But I could just like be imagining this, like I said, multiple years, and my memory is atrocious. But I think there's definitely going to be a ton of co-op, which is the thing that I care more so than versus, personally. You guys know me, I'm not that big into PvP. I'm usually more about the co-op thing. But yeah, it seems like they're focusing on single player for the story mode for now, but I would expect that story mode to be playable in multiplayer as well. And keep in mind, because there has been the question about the open world, which I thought I had something here where we talked about the open world, but I guess I didn't put it in because it wasn't that relevant. But basically, it's not open world, okay? The game is not open world, in case you're wondering. It's going to be mission structure. So you're going to have your lobby, and then you're going to go in, you're going to select your mission, and then you go in and go into that mission, you're going to do that mission. I think that some of the exploration things are going to be around scavenging. I think you're going to be able to scavenge parts from enemy mechs. That I think is going to be a key aspect, which I don't know if you did that in Armored Core 5 or not, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to be scavenging parts from your enemies and stuff like that, and that is going to unlock new parts for you to put into your customization of the mech later down the line. But will it once again reset the story, or will it continue from Armored Core 5? Masaru Yamamura, yes, we'd like to think this of a completely fresh new story. There are no direct links with the previous games in terms of continuing story. This is a brand new setting and a brand new story for players to enjoy. So, this basically means you don't need to have played the previous ones if you don't want to. If you want to, though, I think they're pretty fun, but it's probably pretty hard to get your hands on them. Like, you'd need to have a PlayStation 3, I think, or an Xbox 360. So I don't know how many of you guys have those consoles lying around. I can tell you right now that I loved playing Armored Core 5. I think it was pretty fun. Now, this is a very important question. What is Armored Core 6's approach to difficulty? Yamamura says, of course, with Armored Core 6, what we wanted to focus on was this really intense and tough mecha battles. We have generally tried to keep it on the challenging side, but that's not to say it's a flat difficulty line throughout. We wanted to have some nice tempo changes and some nice balance to the difficulty and the level of challenge. It can vary depending on the mission type. It depends on the enemies you're coming up against in those missions. It depends on how you want to assemble your mech. But this one approach we wanted to have is to have the player decide how they wanted to assemble and how they wanted to approach each mission, and then to have this nice balanced level of challenge throughout the missions and throughout the campaign. So it is going to be challenging. The Armored Core 5 was also somewhat challenging as well. They also said during the interview that they wanted to really focus on boss battles. I don't know if I put that bit in here. I'll be linking to the full interview on the description of this video in case you guys are interested. But yeah, a big focus of Armored Core 6 is going to be the boss battles. IGN, what were some of the lessons that you learned from your work as a designer on Sekiro, and how are you applying them to the difficulty in Armored Core 6? Yamamura says, I would say that while these severe and intense battles is still very much a focus of Armored Core 6 and something that carries between our games, the approach to how we handle this and how we design difficulty is actually quite different. You mentioned Sekiro, and the approach there was very stoic, one-track approach to battle with just one weapon and just your resolve as a player. I feel like with Armored Core 6, the approach is quite different, mainly because of the assemble aspect. So again, they're talking about the customization of the mech. So your battle really starts in the Armored Core garage, where you are deciding which weapon, in which layout, which performance you want your Armored Core to have in battle, and taking this forward to each encounter in each boss battle. So that's really part of the strategy this time, and I think that affects the difficulty greatly. And this is the final question that I put in here. When I listen to you talk about Armored Core, in so many ways it feels like a traditional Armored Core game. It has mission-based gameplay, it's very focused on customization. I'm curious, how does Armored Core fit into the current library of From Software games, the modern From Software games, I should say, such as Sekiro and Elden Ring and Dark Souls in your mind? How does it fit into the future of From Software in your viewpoint? And this is Miyazaki answering. Yes, I think I see the nuance of the question. I think it's mostly concerned with how this mission-based structure fits into modern games, and particularly modern From Software games. To answer this, I think player mobility and player ability obviously plays a huge part in how we approach the design to these games. Whether it's Elden Ring or Dark Souls or Armored Core, obviously the assembly aspect comes into that and doesn't quite apply to that fully open world exploration approach. We had to choose from the outset of designing Armored Core 6, which approach we wanted to go with and where we wanted to put the focus. This time, while there is an aspect of exploration in Armored Core 6, which, like I said, I believe that's going to come in the form of you scavenging enemy mechs and maybe sometimes veering off the beaten path, because sometimes certain missions would have like optional objectives, and I think you going after those optional objectives is going to be something that is going to reward you with new parts and stuff like that, and that is going to kind of like be the exploration aspect of it. Or maybe they're planning on doing something like specific expeditions where you get to actually just explore a map and, you know, just have a blast in there, and it's more freeform as opposed to just like a strict mission structure. But I'm not sure. That would be what I would say. We had to choose from the outset of designing which we wanted to put the focus this time. Being expecting exploration in Armored Core 6, we wanted to put the focus on the breadth of variety in assembling and customizing your own mech, and really feeling as if you're piloting that mech that you've carefully put time into. We felt that the mission-based structure was a benefit for this because it allows you to choose and customize before each sortie. The very least, the tempo, the pace at which the player is able to move across the world and traverse the map, this is a very big aspect in how you approach this design. I think one of the big appeal points of previous Armored Core games is having this freedom to choose how you're going to move across the map and how your choices are going to affect your mobility and your ability once you're actually in the level. This is the format we wanted to choose this time, and this is where we wanted to put our focus. And like I said, one of the things that for some reason I didn't pull out of the interview is like they're applying a big focus into boss fights. So I think we can expect a lot more complexity in boss fights and actually pattern recognition and the type of stuff that we've kind of come to expect from Souls games, but in a very Armored Core way. So they're going to be focusing more on bosses, so I think we're going to be getting more epic bosses than we've gotten before, and more engaging combat than we've had before. But personally, I'm just super excited for it because, like I said, this in a way is almost like From Software's Monster Hunter. If you really think about it, it's a mission structure, just like we have a quest structure in Monster Hunter. You select your loadout. You customize your mech depending on the threat that you are facing off against. Hey, is it the fast type of mech that I'm fighting against? Got to make sure that I'm nimble. Or is it a mech that is just like able to really dish out a ton of damage? Got to make sure that I'm tanky. And you're going to min-max every single aspect of your armored core build. And, you know, you're going to be making your armored cores based on the missions that you're going to be doing. You guys get the point, right? I mean, are you guys excited for this? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be reporting more on Armored Core 6 as we are aware of more news. But yeah, for now, this is going to be it. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. If you enjoy this type of coverage, do remember you can subscribe, bell notification icon, hit the like button so that Aunt Susan doesn't kick us off the platform. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.